Well, we start this June 26th of 2022 with a bag of biscuits at Brahms. And that's what it looks like at Brahms. And I'm going to give it a try. Good old style, old school breakfast. Good old biscuit right there. Pretty good.
Group that we assemble on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Here I was, pretty weak.
Making a list, checking it twice, gonna find out who's naughty or nice, popping in to either reward us or correct us.
Here we go with today's number. June 26, 2022. 10 balls. Each ball has a number. Numbers 1 through 10. Swirl the numbers. Pick a number. Today's number is 6. And I got it right, Gordon Cole, also known as David Lynch. Today's number was 6. And today is June 26. I swirled the numbers in my head. Last night, I looked at the television screen with only the screensaver. And I started to see this underworld thing. This very deep area. And the numbers, not the numbers, but the screensaver things seemed like they went on for a long, long time. And I stared at the screen and there was no noise, no sound. I turned everything off and I just looked at the screen. And they seem to be going on. There's a bird over here. Ooh, that is a pet parakeet. And it's in the middle of the road. And it must have got out somehow. We're going to take a look and investigate. Or as Linda says, to become investigators. There he is. That's a pet bird. That is not a wild bird at all. That is somebody's pet. And he's just sitting there. He's got a name and probably an ID number. He's on location doing his fun work train study of shadows. I guessed today's number as number 6, and I got it right. We got a squirrel. Looks like he's going for the water. Not far from here was a story I wrote called Mid-City Boulevard Squirrels, which starts off with Nutty, the squirrel, getting flattened by a vehicle. His friends have to go back. Lucy, Johnny, and Timmy to scrape him up off the ground or off the concrete and give him a proper burial by an oak tree. Then I did a sequel called East Mid-City Boulevard Squirrels, which is also about Timmy, Johnny, Lucy, and the peanut farm is being leveled and moved to another part of the zip code, or another zip code. And they have to get on a train with a squirrel riding train called Chuck. Chuck takes them to the new area to find the new peanut farm. There's a cat in it called Edmund the cat. And since I've been writing that, there has been a squirrel that visits me. True story. And he lays flat on the patio, front patio. Then he jumps up a tree every time I come out sometimes. It's like he's listening, or maybe he's writing the story secretly. It's about squirrels, starting off where squirrels getting run over. It's like a protest story about squirrels. Squirrels not wanting to get hit by vehicles. And the sequel is about a peanut farm being moved. It's a fun work train. Lots of dining cars and observation cars all over the place. That one's called the Big Kahuna. Empire. That road says Lane right there, and there's a hospital right there. And when my son was born, 2014, around this time, it was more closer to August, it was very hot. I had put him in the back of the car and had taken him home. But for some reason, I don't know why, but I don't remember my wife being in the car. Don't know where she would have been. But I did take him home, and I guess maybe she was asleep or something. And he was back there, and I was looking in the rearview mirror at him, because they look a little different when they come out. Kind of like that Cosby moment where you gotta watch Bill Cosby. Well, Bill Cosby has a bad rap now, but he used to talk a lot about childbirth whenever he was popular. But meaning, being birthed, being born is kind of a rough experience for really anybody. But maybe she was asleep, and I just remember, for some reason, when I remember it, when I go back and remember it, I remember just David and me in the car, and I was driving back to the apartment, which is off of Walnut Hill. It's not too far from here. I'm on Colony Drive right now, but over on the next drive is where we left. And that was my first time being a father, knowing they don't give you any directions or any kind of book or anything. They just give you the baby and say, have a good day, Now, I remember thinking, I hope, he's okay and everything like that, because you don't really know, and you appear to be fine. Pretty much perfect. But when I got home, something very strange happened to me that day when I arrived at home with my firstborn son, David. My wife was there, so she must have been asleep beside me in the passenger side. David was in the back. And I had a little wrist thing right here. Little wrist thing that you have for the hospital, because I slept at the hospital the entire time. I never left until we took David, my son, home. And we got back to the apartment, and the first thing I did was we laid the baby down in the baby bed. It was a baby bed. I went into the kitchen, I took a pair of scissors, and I cut the hospital wristband right off my wrist. And when I did that, I cut right into my wrist. I began bleeding. And that's a dangerous place to cut. And the way that I cut, too, was I cut this way right here. Kind of like this. So it started bleeding. I didn't know how bad it was. So I laid down, and it bled for a little bit, but not too bad. And it eventually wasn't that bad of a cut, but I didn't know it right after I cut if that was, that was it. But I probably could have, rushed back to the hospital and said, well, I got it. I just cut myself some scissors. But no, it was a small little incision that I had made on the side of my wrist. Don't know why. It's just an accident. But then the next day, there he was. David cried a lot, and he also took an hour of pushing. Of course, I didn't have to push, but I did have to coach it. And it was like an hour of pushing. But he did cry quite a bit throughout the first month or so, to the point where I was exhausted. So at night, I would walk around carrying David from the kitchen into the living room, back from the living room into the kitchen, so that my wife at the time could sleep. So I didn't get a lot of sleep, but luckily I was able to take some FMLA time off, and I was able to, I was able to, but it did go on. He did cry even when I got back to work, and that was harder, but not as much. But it was almost like I had to carry him from the kitchen into the living room, from the living room to the kitchen to the living room, and then he would stop crying as long as I walked him around. There wasn't a lot of rest. Parents don't get that when they have children. They suffer from what's called of sleep deprivation. It's pretty bad. But we got through it though. But I have not seen David or Elizabeth or Gwendolyn in 3 years. $10 golden tenders, 4 mixed piece chickens, 2 family sides, and 4 fresh baked rolls. Adagio for Strings by Barbara, and it's been used in many movies and funerals. One movie that it's in is a movie called Platoon, written and directed by Oliver Stone, which I was watching last night, which is very disturbing and at times even almost spiritually uplifting. Basically, it's about a private tailor who volunteers to join Vietnam, basically the war, join the war as an army grunt, and sees the feud between two of his kind of fathers, Elias and Barnes, Sergeant Barnes and Elias. It's about Vietnam. Well, Platoon is. Going to an ice cream shop, some virtual ice cream shop, ABC, 7 ABC or something like that. Little underground venue right there, sometimes punk, a lot of times pop. Back there's some really hairy stuff going on, like right down that way. Right over there. So I don't even want to really film it. It was this lady on a mattress with a needle or something. It was a really bad area right there. But that revolver, I used to pick up people there on rideshare, you know, like Uber and stuff like that. Really rough area, but they do bring in music. They bring in big DJs, especially a lot of DJs will come through there, big events. But bad area, very bad area. This is supposedly an ice cream parlor called ABC Ice Cream, which is called a virtual restaurant. So it's a virtual restaurant inside another restaurant. And this is supposedly where the ice cream shop is at. So obviously this is not right on the map. It's a Brandy Bridge right here. This is pretty much kind of like right outside where I raised my family in Las Colinas. It was Irving, but it was just right down the road. Only a couple miles away, or 2 or 3 miles away from this area. A lot of movies have been shot here. It is a very famous place for musicians. 9 Inch Nails has played here. All types of bands. a very well-known Sundance movie called Upstream Color by Shane Carruth, who basically invented a new type of cinema when he created the indie blockbuster, which was called Primer. Primer was like an indie blockbuster, a very popular independent film that became like a blockbuster, kind of like Blair Witch and stuff like that. But Primer was Shane Carruth's A Genius, which is a time travel movie about storage units and time travel. He eventually made a movie called Upstream Color, and Linda and I have done a filming location at ICC, which is the Irving Convention Center, which will be passing here pretty soon. They used a lot of Upstream Color basically in Las Colinas, right here in this area. Even the train, a lot of it, a whole lot of the movie was shot there. At least exteriors. I don't know about interiors, but I would assume interiors too, since he was still in the indie market. And ICC, which is Irving Convention Center, was actually filmed there. There was also a federal bank downtown Dallas, in the Dallas area. Deep Ellum was filmed. Parts of Deep Ellum was used in the movie. And that federal bank I found on my own. I found that bank during spring break of last year. We did the Upstream Color filming location there. And I found that myself. I just was watching the movie and did some research and looked up federal banks in the area, which is eventually a closed bank. So it's no longer a federal bank, but it was used in the movie where she goes to the ATM to withdraw a bunch of cash because she's under the spell of this worm that's inside this pig. Anyway, that's the Invention Convention Center right there. That's the convention center right there. That's in Upstream Color. And I thought the filming location we did was pretty good. Not a real popular movie, but it did make a lot of, it got a lot of stuff at Sundance Film Festival. Not our vlog, but the oops, there goes a peanut. The movie. I gestured with these peanuts right here, and peanut went flying out. Also got some Diet Coke too. Diet Coke. Or this is actually peanuts, but that's the Diet Coke right there. You know what I mean? I dropped a peanut when I was trying to eat the peanut. Oh, wants me to take a break. Basically, I'm doing a follow-up of just, you know, why do this? You know, why get on YouTube and talk when I've got a big history in mime, you know, pantomime and mime. And it's because mimes have a tough time making money in America. Actually, really, there aren't many that do really that well. I mean, Marcel Marceau was from France and Paris, and it was accepted. It was like they had to have a mime there, and he was the mime. I did think about going into business in mime, and did some mime shows at Hip Pocket Theater and some other places, and had worked with other mimes across the United States. Went to Gambier. I never really wanted to join the circus. I never wanted to do that. I never really wanted to do street mime. I never wanted to do that, really. There are some in Santa Monica, and there are mimes around, but I never really wanted to do that. I did, at time, I was really interested in doing mime shows at theaters. And I did a few and made a little bit of money doing it, but it's not your average. My dad had an idea where I get business people, like people that own business, to approve of me to do mime at their business to make money, and I thought it was kind of a good idea, but it gets very hot in Texas. Right now it's 104 degrees. I just saw like something melt, you know, just very hot. Now, going back into studying YouTube is you got guys like Adam the Woo, Scott on Tape, Jordan the Lion, and we know that they're all connected in a way, kind of in Hollywood. Jordan the Lion knew Shelley Winters, who's also an ex-rock star, or an ex-rocker, or a guy that had a band. He was basically just a guy that had this band called Candyland Riots, and they didn't do so well, so then he got into vlogging. Adam the Woo was with a popular band called Guttermouth. Well, it was a punk rock, but actually nobody knows about them, but they're called Guttermouth, and he was a bass player, and then he just started vlogging himself and became famous. Lived in his van for a while. Supposedly, that's a rumor. I don't know. I guess he really did. And to pay off some bills and things like that, and then he ended up at John Ritter's grave. I don't know. Anyway, Scott on Tape came out of really nowhere, but he knew the Corey brothers, or Corey Haim, or Corey Feldman, or something like that. Lived down the street from them, and he supposedly the rumor he's from Canada. He's a Canadian that has invaded America. Then you have basically Jacob, the carpetbagger, who really don't know how he ended up on YouTube. Really doesn't really know anybody other than Adam, who made him famous, for sure. And he ate a lot of steak. But Jacob played some kind of card game. It was like a role-playing card game called Magic the Gathering, which he won a bunch of awards and accolades, and nobody really knew or cared. But supposedly it helped him in some way. He's secretly a magician. Or a wizard or something. I don't know. He got attacked in San Francisco in his window. Something happened. I don't know. He ran away from it. But regardless, they're all still doing it, and they're all vlogging. And Scott on Tape is kind of more of like the kind of put it the stand-up comedian kind of thing with his hair, and he's kind of does this like stand-up thing a lot of stand-up routines. So it has got like a way where you can do stand-up on YouTube. And then of course Seinfeld, I don't see him as a vlogger, but discovered some lady that had like a lipstick problem, haters back off kind of thing. It still wants me to take a break. Now, why I'm talking about this is I don't really know, because really I should be miming it, but I don't know if that would do a whole lot. I do have some mime on my YouTube, but mimes have a bad rap. They really do, especially American mimes, which I don't claim to be. Most of my, well, Southern American mime, I guess a Texas Southern American mime. I first studied under another mime that owns a theater out by the lake. And he taught mime in college and stuff like that. So I learned from him, and then eventually from another mime that was a disciple of Marcel Marceau, who's Grega, who's worked with Anne Hathaway and a bunch of other people, or he taught them mime. Mime's important. And then like Jessica Lange even has studied mime, and that was like all tied to a guy named Etienne Decroux, which has nothing to do with YouTube at all, or vlogging, or talking really at all. Mime is the art of silence. So why not do that? Like a kung fu movie? I don't know.